On embarking on this topic, the statistics shocked me, and as I researched this topic further, I wanted to find out how much the research reflected true in the women in the community around me. I spoke to 32 women and asked them a series of questions, including what they did for a living, their thoughts on superannuation, how much time off they had when they had children, any barriers or biases they may have faced, as well as homelessness. Out of the 32 women I spoke with, 9 worked full-time, 20 were part-time or casual, and 3 were unemployed or stay-at-home mums. 23 of them had children and 9 did not. And 99% of those with children mentioned the biggest barrier to re-entering the workforce was finding work that was flexible around their families. Australia has amongst the highest levels of female part-time work in the world, usually shaped around caring for children. This is one of the biggest reasons why, generally speaking, women's superannuation balances are typically more than 40% less than men's. When discussing superannuation with my interviewees, more than 80% were concerned about their lack of super and the impact that this will have on them in years to come.
I never really consider my superannuation.
Super, yes. I could retire any time. I could retire to the park with a cup of coffee.
Statistics say that 44% of women rely on their partner's income as their main source of funds for retirement. However, I found in my interviews this was a lot closer to 85%. Making them much more vulnerable and at risk of poverty.
At the moment, I'm totally relying on him financially. If we would divorce, I would have a slight problem.
Other contributing factors that are linked to lower superannuation than men's includes taking time off for children and female-dominated industries attracting lower wages. Out of the 32 women I spoke to, only 7 considered themselves in male-dominated industries. Lastly, 26 out of the 32 women estimated they did over 30 hours a week of unpaid work around the home. As a result, they have less time to engage in paid labour or have to do longer hours combining both paid and unpaid. Women's unpaid work subsidises the cost of care that sustains families, supports economies, and often fills in for the lack of social services. Women are more likely to be at risk of homelessness because of inherent financial disadvantage. The fact that they are more likely to be in casual and low-paid employment, that they have lower super and savings due to time out of the workforce, and the compounding effects of family violence, which continues to be a major driver of homelessness. In my discussions with these incredible women, I discovered that 12 of them had been homeless at some point in their life, 9 of them experiencing invisible homeless, and 3 of them experienced primary homelessness.
I spent approximately 2 months living in my car in Canada. First time my life was actually at risk, so I needed to flee. I was in hiding for approximately 3 months until he was caught and put into jail.
The cause of my homelessness was the fact that I had entrusted someone who essentially didn't deserve my trust, a respected professional who was employed by the Department of Foreign Affairs to provide migration assistance to Australians overseas, to sleeping in a car.
It is apparent that women are at a disadvantage with respects to the risks of poverty. Despite this being a wicked problem, positive changes can be initiated, but only through a multifaceted approach, tackling all 3 paradigms of poverty, which include cultural, individual, and structural theories. So what needs to change? We need greater involvement of men with unpaid work at home, changing traditional stereotypes and discourses of the male breadwinner and the female carer. Flexible work needs to be part of accepted workplace culture for both men and women, and reforms to superannuation to ensure women who receive lower salaries and perform unpaid work are not left at poverty in retirement. We also need to increase funding for women's homelessness to combat the impacts of domestic violence. To me, it's highlighted that everybody has a story. Homelessness and domestic violence don't discriminate against age, education, and culture. Working with women in the future, I will be mindful of the specialised knowledge needed and the awareness of the higher risks of poverty. The ability to be able to advocate for equality, demonstrate understanding and empathy, and be able to educate and inform to help assist women take control of their lives whilst considering the social context in which women live.